Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftsman Mark O'Donnell. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant George Henry Gates in attendance and whose family are also watching the live stream online. His story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant George Henry Gates. George Gates was born in the Sydney suburb of Petersham, New South Wales, on the 5th of May 1894. He was the eldest of 4 children born to Arthur and Elizabeth Gates. The family remained in Petersham throughout George's childhood. He attended Summerhill Public School, then went on to study at Sydney Technical College, before undertaking a 6-year plumbing apprenticeship with Smith Plumbers Sydney. George Gates continued to work as a plumber and drainer after he finished his apprenticeship, while also serving part-time as an acting drill sergeant major in the 33rd Battery of the Commonwealth Military Forces. An active member of his local community, George attended the local Baptist church with the rest of his family and was heavily involved in the church's activities. Having completed officer training, Gates enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 16th of February 1917, nearly 2 years after his younger brother Frank had joined up. He was allotted to the 25th Reinforcements of the 13th Battalion with the rank of sergeant and began initial training at Liverpool Camp. Gates departed Australia on the 10th of May 1917, sailing from Sydney in HMAT Marathon. He arrived in Devonport, England in late July and immediately joined the 4th Training Battalion in Codford to prepare for the service on the Western Front. Over the next 4 months, he moved between the 4th Training Battalion, the AIF's administrative headquarters in London, and the 12th Training Battalion. Sergeant George Gates proceeded overseas to France on the 4th of December 1917. He joined B Company of the 34th Battalion Les Resonants on the 15th of December 1917, where he settled in for a long and bitter winter of training, labouring and service in the line. After a relatively quiet winter, the 34th Battalion spent the spring of 1918 engaged in defending Allied positions against the German Army's spring offensive. They defended the approach to Amiens and Hangford Wood and Villers-Bretonneux in late March and early April. The battalion remained in the Somme Valley throughout May and June before moving north into the line around Hamel in late July. While serving, Gates wrote home frequently to update his family about his experiences and his longing for home. He regularly asked for news about day-to-day life back in Petersham and about his parents and younger sisters Florrie and Elise. In his final letter home, written on the 15th of August, Gates reflected on the optimism amongst his fellow soldiers that the war was finally coming to a close, writing, "Yesterday concluded the 4th year of the war, but I think we have the end now well in sight. I can assure you at all that I will be very much mistaken and disheartened if I am not home during the early months of next year." On the 8th of August, the battalion took part in the Battle of Amiens, fighting against Hamel. As platoon sergeant during the attack, Gates was detailed to collect parties who had lost their units in a wood because of the dense fog, all while they're under the heavy artillery fire. He managed to collect around 30 men and bring them into his platoon. During the advance, Gates also attacked a terrace of dugouts defended by a German machine gun. He rushed the position, killing 2 of the gunners and capturing the heavy machine gun under severe fighting. After securing the position, he and his men rushed into the dugouts and captured over 30 men. Supporting his company left flank, he led his men to the final objective, and after the fighting, assisted in returning the men he had collected during the fighting to their proper units. 5 days after the battle, Gates was recommended for a military medal for his actions during the attack. His commanding officer wrote that he showed conspicuous gallantry. His bravery was outstanding. George Gates' military medal was ultimately awarded on the 15th of September 1918. On the 20th of August, the battalion was in line outside Bray when they came under heavy artillery fire from the enemy. A shell crashed into the trench which Sergeant Gates was sheltering, hit him in the head and killing him instantly. He was 24 years old. Less than a month later, George's younger brother Frank was also killed in action. On the first anniversary of George's death, his friend Marjorie Lay inserted a short commemorative poem in the Sydney Morning Herald. "O Lord, let those who fought and fell, wherever they may be, know that we feel the debt we owe our dear ones now with thee." George was initially buried at Tye Wood British Cemetery, close to where he fell. After the war, his remains were exhumed and re-interred into Beacon Cemetery in France. His name is also listed in the Roll of Honour on my right among 62,000 Australians who died while serving in World War I. His photograph is displayed by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant George Henry Gates, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope for a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left to grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.